There'll be some instances when you have to use the square root property in order to solve an equation. So that's what we'll be talking about. In order to solve an equation using the square root property, we need to, like any other equation, isolate our x term, our variable. But in this case, our x term is an x squared. So in order to solve for it, we would isolate it and then square root both sides to get rid of the square to solve for x. So we would have the form x squared equal to k, where k is just some number. And an x, when you square root both sides, you would get x equals to plus or minus square root of k. But just keep in mind that when solving an equation by taking a square root, the result must always be positive and negative. Let's try some examples. In this one, we have x squared minus 1 equals to 24. So first thing we need to do is we need to isolate our x squared term. So we do that by bringing that negative 1 over to the right side. So we would have to add 1. We're doing one side, we have to do the other. We add 1 both sides. So that would give us x squared equals to 25. Now, to get rid of our squared right here, what we need to do is we need to take a square root in order to get rid of it. So we square root on the left, and we square root on the right. So on the left side, we're left with just x, because the square and the square root cancel one another out. And now the square root of 25 gives us 5, but every time we take a square root, we always have to have plus or minus. So our answer is x equals to plus or minus 5, or you can see it as x equals to positive 5 and negative 5. Either or would be acceptable answers. Alright, so now we have 3x squared plus 9 equals to 57. So again, we want to isolate our x squared term. So we do that by subtracting the 9 on both sides. Now we're left with 3x squared equals to 48. Again, we need to get our x squared by itself. Right now we have a 3 in the front of that x squared. We need to get rid of it. We get rid of it by dividing, because before you're allowed to square root, you always want to isolate just the x squared term. Anything else you need to get rid of. So we're left with x squared equals to 48 divided by 3 is 16. And then now that's isolated, this is when you take your square root. So square root of, again, let's left with just x. And square root of 16 is again a plus or minus 4. Alright, now we have x minus 7 squared equals to 81. So a lot of what students like to do first is they would try to expand it. What they would try to do is they would write this as x minus 7 times x minus 7 and then start foiling. But the problem with foiling is that when you do that, you're actually making the equation longer for yourself, harder for yourself. So in reality, you actually don't want to do that. So this would not be the right way to do it. How we do it is, let's rewrite our equation down here. X minus 7 squared equals to 81. The squared right there is the key. We see that it is squared. To get rid of a square, we just have to square root. So every time you see a perfect square like that, x something squared, you just square root it in order to get rid of it. So now we're just left with x minus 7 on the left equals to square root of 81 is a plus or minus 9. So really we have two types of equations. We have x minus 7 equals to positive 9, or x minus 7 equals to negative 9. So you just solve both of those like normal. So you would add 7. So x equals to 9 plus 7 gives us 16. And then add 7 over here, add 7 over here. So x equals to negative 9 plus 7 is a negative 2. So our answer would be x equals to 16 or x equals to negative 2. And again, you can always plug them back into the original to check if you wanted to.